general, everyone who listens to this podcast, including, I would say, 99.9% of physicians, scientists, and so on, we're all conditioned by the way society views life and death in a very clear, binary, separable ways.
That's Sam Parnia, Associate Professor of Medicine at NYU Langone, where he is also the Director of Research into Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation and the author of a new book, Lucid Dying, the new science revolutionizing how we understand life and death.
And what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that actually those are social conventions. The idea that we have that there's a clear line that delineates life from death is a social convention. It is not grounded in the realities that exist in the human body.
Is it possible that we're accepting people are dead too early? That our view of when life ends is actually keeping people from possibly being brought back? And when we say brought back, what do we mean? What happens to consciousness in the space between life and death?
What we do know is that there is a clear line when you extend hours of time. It's a little bit like saying, if you and I were flying across the Atlantic, we're going from, let's say, New York to London. And we know that in New York, it's daytime, and in London, it's the evening time, it's darkness. That absolutely exists. But when you fly, you start in light, and then somewhere along the line, it starts to get progressively less light, more gray. And then eventually, at some point, it is total darkness, right? But there isn't a line. Where would you draw that line? There isn't a line.
Good analogy.
Do you see? And so we think in society, we just think of the light and the darkness, and we think these things happen at exactly like immediately after each other. And the point we're trying to make is the human body, the mammalian body, the reality of science is that there isn't. There is this transition from light to darkness, but it happens over many, many hours of time.
The research by Parnia and others into resuscitation is completely revolutionizing what we mean when we talk about death.
There are millions of people who would be saved if our idea of life and death was challenged. Instead of thinking of it as a binary end, that we recognize that we can salvage it even after it's happened, we would design treatments, we would be able to bring back people after death. That's key.
On today's episode, using science to understand death.